still.
Shey, you have to tell us when we're live.
We are?
It's a tradition to start every session with us
live.
asking, are we live? Are we live?
We
Shey,
are
are we live?
Yeah.
Woo!
Hey.
All right, excellent. So, yeah, and then the next tradition is that I always have to mute the stream that I have on. All right, everybody, welcome to another 9 out of 10 tester session, the April session, the one and only testers panel show where we rant for an hour and present it as insightful discussion. So today we're talking about deep work. What is deep work? Do we need it? How do you get into the zone? Do we know any hacks? And if yes, do we think they are any good? Before we start talking about deep work and before we all introduce ourselves, we've got a super sweet giveaway this week. So we've got a ticket for Expo QA in Madrid, in Spain. Imagine, like, even if you don't care about testing, how cool would it be to go to a conference in Madrid? Sanne is going to be speaking there. I'm going to be speaking there. There's going to be a ton of other cool people there. And you can win a ticket. And the only thing that you have to do is, Sanne, would you like to present the question?
Yes, I'd love to. Tell us what is the wrong answer to the question, how do I get deep work done? Wrong answers only. And the answer that makes us snort laugh the loudest wins. We're going to put a tweet up just now, and any bad answers. Oh, yeah. And we love puns. Give it to us.
Nice.
Wrong answers only. How to get deep work done.
So keep your eyes peeled on Twitter, because we're only going to do it on one platform because we don't like to divide and conquer and we like to make our own lives easy. So if you don't have a Twitter account yet, make one quickly and you can win a ticket for Expo QA. Right, so back to deep work, back to the session. I think we feel a lot of us post-pandemic are struggling maybe a bit more than in the past to get into that deep zone of focus, of being purely into that one thing that you are doing. So today we'll be talking a little bit about that. But before we do that, let us introduce ourselves for those who are tuning in for the first time. Today we'll do it in alphabetical order of first name. So that's starting with you, Chris.
Hi, I'm Chris Armstrong. I'm based in South Wales in the UK, and I work for Provar Testing. That is it. Not very interesting.
You are very interesting, Chris. Don't put yourself down. Right,
we'll
Hanna.
find out later.
Yeah, I'm Hanna and I'm based in Halmstad in Sweden, and I work at Devoteam Creative Tech.
I'm Sanne. I work for Capgemini as a test manager, and I've been hanging out with you guys for nearly a year now, which is good.
Wow. That is so good. I think it's me next. Yes. Hey, I'm Shey, and I work for Prima Assicurazioni, and I've been there nearly a year, so it corresponds with this 9 out of 10 testers, and I'm senior quality engineer there. And yeah, over to the one and only Veerle.
Over to the one and only Veerle, the one who is always last in lists when alphabetical order is concerned. My name is Veerle Verhagen. I'm a tester with Riskit. We're a consultancy from the Netherlands. You can find me on Twitter as Witch of the Test, in case you want to say anything to me after today. I also included my last name in my tag, finally, so that people can actually find me on LinkedIn, because spelling my last name is a bit of a challenge. So that's all of us. You can find the group of us as 9 out of 10 testers on LinkedIn and Twitter. So that's 9 out of 10 testers with 9 and 10 spelled as the numbers, not in letters, which I'm sure you can find because we're on YouTube on that name as well. So enough with the waffling. Let's get started. Before we say anything else about it, what is deep work even? And in order to answer that question, I think I would like to know, what does it feel like to you? What does it feel like to be doing deep work, to be in the zone? Who volunteers?
Wow. Okay. I can never step back from somebody saying who volunteers. So I'll go first. Deep work. Deep work for me is being focused in such a way that you almost don't notice anything else around you all the time. get passing, you are perhaps enjoying what you're doing, but whatever you're doing, you're pretty much at your most productive. I know what it is. Do I do it? I'm not sure. So yeah, there we go.
Yeah, so there's always talk of this magical flow state, but to me, it's really that feeling when you get a lot of things done in not even a short time, but just it feels incredibly like you're moving the meter on things, and that to me is deep work.
Cool.
Anyone else?
I know. What do you say?
I mean, I think I agree. It's pretty much when you're so focused that someone could like almost blow a bomb up right next to you, and you wouldn't really react too much when you're really focused. But I mean, it's something I rarely am that focused, to be honest. But I mean, you have some people where you say their name and you can like barely get a response, and I think that's really focused deep work.
Although that tends to be when they're reading the newspaper, not when they're working.
Could be both, actually.
Chris, how about you?
I was thinking about it because I think, like Shey said, it's a lot to do with everything else doesn't matter. You can actually just see and only think about one thing. You're not aware of things around you, time passing, noises, people, any of those things cuts out. I mean, I think about my kids when they're watching some sort of YouTube video on Minecraft. You can say their name, you can sort of click your fingers. There's nothing that will distract them from that unless you sort of go caca, which seems to work. But they're so
seems a
blocked.
lot of trial and error in there.
They're really blocked out on those things, and for me, it's when I'm not aware of the other things. And for like an overactive brain, like I have, to not be aware of one thing, to be able to only focus on one thing, it's kind of very zen and lovely.
I like it because everybody says something that sounds similar, but I think like has differences in the details. And I think I'm mostly with Chris. It's when I stop being distracted by other things, because I'm an incredibly distracted kind of person. And so usually I'll have maybe like my phone somewhere or Twitter. And even if I force myself to not look at Twitter, I'll still be thinking about it. And that deep work flow for me is when I just completely forget about all of the other things. I think that's quite similar to what you were saying, Chris. So now that we know what it is, how do we get there? We talked about a few different hacks. We'll talk about some different hacks. The first one that everybody sort of agreed on was universally accepted, is just scheduling time in your diary for deep work. Who does that?
Yeah, we agreed on that one, but we'd also agreed none of us actually do it.
I actually started doing it very recently, so I kind of forgot about that. We agreed on that. Sorry.
No, but then if you've recently started doing it, is it helping? Because I find blocking chunks of time doesn't do much. I mean, it just means there's a block of time that I'm like, well, this is a lovely moment to drink a lot of coffee and get on the phone and chat with people. And I'm not saying it's not useful. It's just not necessarily hyper focusing on work.
Yeah, I suppose that's fair. I think I've started doing it a little bit because, as I've mentioned a ton of times, I'm in consultancy, and I often do different assignments concurrently, which means that I have to divide my time between different projects, and it takes a bit of context switching. And I sometimes feel a little bit torn because I feel like I should be available at all times for all the different people that I work with, for all of them, for all projects. And it quite often it means that I won't really be focusing on any one of them. So I've started doing that more since the projects that I'm working on have started being for like not just different teams, but different companies as well. It kind of helps me to block an afternoon for just one project. And I guess it doesn't necessarily always mean that I get into that zone, that I get really deep work done. It does mean that at least I don't have to switch between topics for maybe a couple of hours. And that does seem to help a lot with concentration.
Interesting.
Yeah, that single stream thing. There's the I can't remember how long ago it was, but there was some sort of proof that finally came out a few years ago that people cannot multitask. They are single stream animals, and the fact when you say you're multitasking, it's a bit of a sort of misrepresentation in a way, because what you're doing is you're micro switching between two things, but you're still on a single single see, I've lost the train of thought on a single subject, and so yeah, you being able to sort of lengthen that time when you're on a single stream, I think enables you to be able to really get momentum up. And I think a lot of what we're talking about is how do we get momentum up in work, because it's all very well saying, right, a deep work session, and as Sanne says, yeah, I'll go and make a cup of coffee and check my whatever, but it's like, okay, if you're going to make time for deep work, you kind of need to know what you're going to be doing in that time as well. It's all very well sort of going, Wednesday 1 p.m. to 2 p.m. deep work time, but before that you kind of need to go, hey, what am I doing in that time? So maybe on the day.
I would like to invite Hanna here, because Hanna, I saw your response to the question that Sanne put out, and you said you work best when multitasking, I think.
I mean, I prefer to do more than one thing at a time because it keeps me alert, and it's the way that I'm really comfortable. So I mean, I'm kind of double working quite a lot of the time, and I mean, I find that I get a lot of things done, but when there is something that I really need to focus on, I tend to do it early in the morning, because I start work at normally like 6:30, and it's not too many people online then that distract you, and that makes for excellent time to get to focus. If there's something that I need to do, I'll normally do it early in the morning, so I know I'll get it done. But I do have some colleagues that wake up early as well, so I mean, sometimes it fails, but normally before 8 o'clock is really best time to get things done.
There's some truth to what you're saying there, Hanna, in doing many things at once. And I think you mentioned it, Veerle, on LinkedIn as well, that you need a deadline to really get away from distractions. That is very, very true. Like, I find the easier it is to get deep work done or to really focus, the busier it generally is. Like, that really does help, having that sort of deadlines, multiple things. Staying on edge maybe is the word, like keeping my mind slightly on the uncomfortable side of I have plenty of time. Like, I do not have plenty of time kind of pushes me into that zone. Yeah.
I think that could be
I'm
different.
in this picture and I don't like it.
I mean, it could be different for different people, because I tend to be, if I have a deadline, I mean, yeah, fair enough, that's just, well, not a stressor, but it will make you try to get it done. However, I'm such a time-focused person that I'll normally have it done 2 weeks before deadline, because otherwise that will stress me out. But if I get it done and start things early on, it's how I work best and actually manage to focus it.
Yeah. So I went into an incredibly long rabbit hole into this research that Shey mentioned. So I kind of want to share a few things from there, if that's okay at this point.
Go for it.
So there's an example of deep work. Like, I probably spent 3 or 4 hours just reading all the research, because I was like, this number kept popping up. Sebastian's mentioning it in the comments as well. Context switching is what distracts me the most. And this number pops up all over. Like, it takes 23 minutes, 20 minutes, 25 minutes. There's slight variations here and there to switch between tasks once you have been distracted by, say, a phone message or a colleague at your desk. And it turns out that this is true, but the other thing that stunned me is, yes, it distracts you, but then once you get back to the task, you move faster and work more concentratedly on the task and get it done in the same amount of time. And as I was also thinking about these mental health things we're struggling with in our industry too, something started clicking for me. It's like, okay, yeah, I like feeling busy and I like this tension. And for me, that's healthy. But what if other people are like hitting this gas pedal to compensate for distraction, but it's causing them to overwork? And what if there's some truth to that link between like how you're feeling at work and if you're exhausted, yes or no? It's maybe because of the distractions. So you're compensating for them. So that was fascinating to me, and I tweeted it out as well. So I learned that your work doesn't take any longer, even when you are distracted.
So it's you're kind of in a productivity focus spiral kind of thing. As you come around to it, you get faster and faster. So I guess if you have two tasks, it's like one foot on each pedal of a bicycle, and if you're in high gear, you start slow, and then as you go along, you're getting more productive on each of those tasks.
Yeah, that too. So it was just fascinating, and it's not the easiest set of experiments to do, apparently, so it's hard to really measure. And with human variation, like the context switching is bad for everybody. That was universally measured, but it's not 20 minutes for everybody. Like there are people, especially women, that switch faster, it turns out.
Especially women?
Yeah, it turned out a lot of people like with high empathy, which happen to be women most of the time, they score higher on empathy. So there's not that direct gender link, but there is the empathy link. They tend to switch faster and under the sort of 20-minute mark. Yeah, the end of deep dive.
we end up finding ourselves a bit in positions sometimes where we have to be context switching. We can't control that, I guess, like the availability thing that you talked about, Veerle, but also in some of the roles that we have in our work, we have to chop and change between those things. Have we got any sort of hacks for ways that we can at least remove some distractions from our life that's actually effective? Do we have anything that we do regularly to help us do those things as we go through? Because I for one put headphones on to at least stop hearing the distractions.
And what do you listen through your headphones? Just
this is interesting for different things. So if I'm reading, I have to listen to sort of rock and metal and stuff like that. Interestingly enough, nothing calm, but that's good enough for me to be able to sort of shut everything else out so I can read and take stuff in. But if I'm writing or if I'm doing other bits of work, then I will listen to Eurovision and pop and literally anything, because the mood is a bit different. When I'm being more creative externally, I probably need a little bit more jumpy kind of stuff to do that. Whereas if I'm taking it in, I just want that kind of consistent thrash to go on in my life. And then I guess the other hack I have is that depending on what I'm working on, I use a different book notepad for different things that I'm working on. So I've got 3 or 4 different notepads, and I write different things in different books, so I don't have all my notes from everything I'm working on in one book that I have to then search through, and I write everything down on paper because my brain doesn't work otherwise.
That's fascinating. Like for a while there at the beginning of the pandemic, just putting these things on put me in work mode because it became so associated in my brain with actually working. And I still to this day find myself sitting with headphones on with nothing on them, no Teams call, but it's just the mode I'm in.
Yeah.
It's enough. So yeah, there's something to that, but I'm the opposite. Like music does not work at all. Like I need silence and just generally, like I can stand people being around me, but no music. That's really distracting.
Yeah, I mean, I struggled beginning of the pandemic with it being quiet because I work the best when there's sound going on. So when I'm not in a meeting, I'll put on a TV show that I've watched 100 times. So I'm not really watching it, but it's like happening in the background. So I feel like, okay, I'm not alone.
Yeah, we'd hate each other if we shared the same office. Like I cannot
Probably.
stand that kind of noise in the background where there's actual words and things being said.
Well, you know what I was just thinking as everyone was talking there. Prior to the pandemic, you'd been in a busy office and getting distracted all the time and things like that. And yeah, the rule generally in many of the offices I worked in was like if a person has their headphones on, generally you've got to like approach them carefully or only in a sort of emergency or whatever, because they're trying to focus. And I remember sort of going, oh, you know what? I wish I could be at home. I think I'd probably focus better. And nowadays, funny enough, it's the exact opposite. When I go to the office, I find I'm a bit more focused. I mean, there are still the distractions, but I think the work I do there is perhaps more single stream or more focused because I go to the office for a reason, say for a meeting or something. But it's for me, it's almost flipped around. Like the really proper focus work happens in the office.
Yep, fair enough. Yeah, and then of course the other thing I do, and you guys have seen me do this, I make plans every Friday for the week that follows, and I make plans every quarter, and I make plans every year. Like I'm a big planning on paper kind of gal. So in case anyone's interested that's watching, it's the Momentum Planning System. If you want to look that up, we'll pop it into the show notes as well. But yeah, I mean, I think I've read and tried all the big ones. You know, the Pomodoro, getting things done, eat that frog. I've been there, read the books, done the techniques, and you know, some of them stick.
Should we introduce some of those hacks? Because to be honest, when we talked about it preparing for this session, I didn't know all of them. So it might be cool to introduce a few of them a little bit, at least the big ones that you mentioned, Sanne.
I'm gonna leave Pomodoro to Shey. I cannot take that honor away from him.
Yes, okay, that's true. Shey, take it away.
I'm such a fan of the Pomodoro technique. Very, very, very short story. I first heard about this before I even knew of the Pomodoro technique. I read an article, probably in Forbes or something. I did try to Google it today to give people a link later. Couldn't find the article, but it's about a copywriter in New York who basically only worked 15 hours a week, but he was the most productive copywriter ever. And he had time to go and build up really quite an impressive art collection, apparently. He was an art fanatic. And when people asked him, how do you do this? And he said, listen, I sit at my desk 30 minutes and I can't do anything except I have a piece of paper in front of me and I have to focus on that work. If nothing happens, I still have to sit at that desk. I can't go to the toilet. I can't do anything else. And then after that 30 minutes, I give myself 5 minutes to do whatever I want. I go and, whatever, get a cup of coffee, and then I have to do that. And I repeat that. And so I'm pretty much done within 2 days of the week, and then I can go and do it. But what that means is that when I'm sitting at the desk, I've learned to really focus in. Now, I took that on and discovered the whole Pomodoro technique, Pomodoro timer, etc. And for those of you who don't know it, it's essentially you do a focus session of 25 minutes, and then you take a 5-minute break, and you repeat that 3 times, and then after the third time you take a 15-minute break. So you're effectively doing about an hour and 20 minutes, hour and 15 minutes work, fairly heavily focused, and then you take a longer break. It takes a little bit of getting into, but I've found, like, even now, if I don't do it for months and then I go, right, you know what, I just need to get a few tasks done, I'll do the Pomodoro thing, sit down, fire up a Pomodoro timer, and my brain now, it's almost, Pavlovian-esque or whatever. It's like my brain goes, oh, you're doing that, boom, focus. and it comes to the end of the 20 or 25 minutes, whatever I set, and the timer goes off. I'm like, oh man, I just got into it, dude. How did that go? So yeah, I'm a real big fan of using that to, if I just need to smash out some tasks, I'll put it down. And there's some really interesting integrations for, I think, a Pomodoro timer and Trello or something, so you can name a task and things. So it's this is one of my biggest productivity hacks at work, is if I need to focus down and get stuff done, I'll fire up a Pomodoro timer.
Additionally, the Pomodoro does also actually encourage you to chunk your work into 25-minute bits and sort of learn your own personal velocity, which is very similar actually to what we learn in Agile sprint planning. So it's like, how well are you at chunking your work? Like, do you need 2 25-minute sessions or 3 or 6? And you start getting an idea for estimating your own chunks of work. That's the other side of Pomodoro that I see people kind of not use, but is also equally very valuable if you need to understand, like, am I the type of person that's always saying I'll get it done, but then I don't actually have the time, or the reverse? And once you do concentrate, you get things done very quickly, but then you're always taking more time for that task. So that's
the big downside for me to Pomodoro is I sort of struggle getting started. So when you really do the Pomodoro thing with 25 minutes and then a 5-minute break, like finally I'll be doing something and then the bell chimes and I'm like, oh, well, I guess it's time for a break. And then I don't stick to 5 minutes because I have zero discipline. And also all the distractions in my life were designed to keep my attention focused for longer than 5 minutes. So if I decide to respond to a few messages on WhatsApp or to read some tweets, like inevitably that's another full Pomodoro gone. Like I do not abide by the chiming of pomofocus.io. I will ignore it. So I guess for me, Pomodoro is mostly good to sort of get over the threshold of I've got this huge big thing to do and I don't want it. So I kind of like lure myself in with the sweet, sweet promise of just 25 minutes. But then I do have to stick to it because otherwise I'll just wait another hour before I start the next Pomodoro.
Yeah.
But that's
Chris,
okay.
or
You just
Hanna,
forgive
do
yourself.
you use it? I've never heard you about it.
No, I don't. That's mainly because a lot of the work that I do at my work is support work that comes like that, and then you need to get on it. So it's like not really time to focus. It's more like it's a constant context switching. So it's
but
tricky.
You do get the constant deadlines, which I suppose really works because everything that gets dropped on your plate is sort of urgent.
Yeah, but I mean, it's not really anyone that sets any deadline. I try to get things out of the way as fast as possible all the time. But yeah, I have zero discipline for that. I mean, I'll get on things straight away normally. So the downside is that you can sometimes forget what you were doing when something came in and distracted you. Normally, it's work distracting me from work. So I mean, it's not outside things. It's still within work. You're like, oh shit, someone needs help. That's important. And this other thing was not someone who's chatting to me, so it doesn't feel as urgent. So it's a balancing act, I think. But yeah, I don't use it. How about you, Chris?
Yeah. Go for it.
I was thinking like one of the problems that I've had with looking at Pomodoro is often there's a task that is so big that I can't slice it down, that I know I can't finish it in the time that I have, and so I don't want to bother starting it because I can't finish it, and because my brain's like, you haven't got enough time now to do that, so don't do that. Do something else. And it's also a problem when you've got a lot of these online meetings, and maybe you've got 5-10 minutes before a meeting, and you think, well, I can't start anything now.
Yeah.
So what can I do? And this is a problem in my wider life as well, I will say, because there might be like, oh, there's a big job that needs doing, like with the kitchen, hanging some cabinets and stuff. But actually, I've only got 30 minutes, so I'm not even going to bother. I'll just sit down and watch telly, or something, because I can't get it done, and I can't, because I can't put it down into a chunk of getting something done at that point. It's like, what do I do with that time? Because that is a time void. It just gets sucked into it, and there's that's something else is happening, and that's got a hard deadline, so I can't start anything new.
Yeah,
and
that's relatable.
Yeah,
it's such a problem.
But this is kind of where the Getting Things Done fans, or the GTD fans, as the community, it's a massive community of people, kind of will get on top of you, because they'll be like, but you should have your list of 2-minute things, all the things that you supposedly can get done in 2 minutes or less. And
oh my God, tell me more. This sounds great.
Well, this Getting Things Done system is mainly, and I'm really going to summarize here, it's to get everything out of your head and into a system. And it doesn't matter if that planning system's on paper or on a Getting Things Done app, but the idea is get all the to-dos out of your head so that all you're focusing on in any given time block is just the thing that you need to be doing. So you can stop planning and remembering and reminding yourself about the tasks. So that's generally, and then those lists are all categorized in all kinds of massively intricate and very special ways, mainly in like important but not urgent, urgent but important. And then you can rank your work according to that list. And there's always a list there that's like this stuff, it can just fill in the little grains of time in between. Like whenever you have 2 minutes, you can get this done. And they have lists for that as well. I find it, I've used it. I find it very overwhelming. It's a complex system, but it works really well for a lot of people. So I don't want to bash on it too much here.
See, I love the way you're describing it. You're actually making me think, oh yeah, I could do that. You know, the one thing that I find really difficult is all of those Medium articles, and there's one person that keeps them cropping up. I'm not going to name him here because I'm about to slag him off, but who go you know, all you need to do is this every day and you'll just be so amazing. Why don't you just have your like 5 a.m. wake up call, man, and cold shower, and then you'll be like the most productive ever. And man, I just want to, it just kills me. And I started off when like years ago when this sort of thing really came around, you know, and I was like, oh yeah, you know, I like that. I even tried the cold shower thing. Once. Hardcore. And but like, you know, it's like, oh my God, why don't you all just shut up? Because it's just it is, everybody's basically rehashing the same thing. Basically, if you get up really early before anybody else does and do all your work, then you've done all your work. Yeah. And I'm so cool because that's what I do. I don't have kids, I don't have a pet, I don't have anything. Look at me, I'm so freaking cool and Californian.
Yeah. So the one thing that did stick from the getting things done to me is that I still do make this one thing, which is called a brain dump. And I do it quite regularly, where I just notice that I'm constantly pinging off on little things like, oh, remember that you needed that bit of groceries, the car needs the tires changed. And I just keep pinging on the same task more than once. At that point, I sit down, I take a page, I just title it brain dump, and I just vomit out every single fucking thing that is on my brain at that moment. Take 20 minutes, the Pomodoro goes on, whatever, just vomit it out. And the brain dump is still with me to this day because it just gets it out of my head. And then I know it's there, it's on paper, and I have systems for looking back at that piece of paper. And then it's out, and it's an incredible relief. So that one thing from getting things done has stuck with me. I still use it a lot.
That's insane.
I might have to look into this. It sounds good.
It's weird because I suddenly, now that you mentioned brain dump, I'm like, wait, I used to do this in the past and I completely forgot about it.
Well, you're welcome. There you go.
That's nice.
Because you're too busy reading about these people who wake up at 5 a.m. and have cold showers.
I never read about those people.
So I actually saw David Allen once at a conference, and it really
Who's David Allen?
He's the author of the Getting Things Done book. And so he was on the stage and he showed the post-it which Chris just flashed in screen just now. He showed his little notebook in his pocket, and he was adamant. He was like, as soon as you've thought of a thing twice, you have wasted brain energy on thinking of that thing, and you should be more efficient with your brain. Like, there's just a whole lot of waste if you are constantly reminding yourself of the things you need to do. Stop doing that. And he was really strict about it.
Chris, you seem to have a system because you were flashing the post-its.
Oh, there we go.
It's one of those things where like I said it before. If I don't write it down, it doesn't get out of my head. It stays there. I need that actual tactile pen to paper thing, and that gets out of my head. So the wall in front of me, I've got post-its, and I can look at them, and I can order them, and I can have it there. But it's out of my head, but it's still visually there. I can still see it. That's how I've always done it, and post-it notes work even better because they're movable and sticky, and I've got a wall in front of my face, and I can just do those things. Virtual stickies, I hate them. That doesn't work because I'm not getting it out of my head by writing the damn thing. This is the problem. Like I tried the virtual stickies widget on the desktop, didn't work. But if I write something down that says this one, Simon says, hey. I do this on the Testing Peers podcast when people are talking. I just kind of throw things at them to see if people are paying attention. Nobody can see us, but this is my favorite one as well, just to ask the question of context. And I flash things on videos at people as well, which is
easy.
Sorry, I flash things in videos.
Sorry. Well, we haven't marked this for family anyway.
This is safe for work.
Flash away.
This is safe for work, my friends. I don't do anything raunchy. But it's visual aids are for myself. They stimulate my brain, so I can see those words and it gets back in. It's good. It helps me do those things. Which for me it's important. If I don't have post-it notes near me, I can't write things down. I also have a Sharpie to do it rather than a pen, because then I can read it from a long way away. Like that's just a thing that works for me. And I did it before when I worked in an office to a lesser degree with a whiteboard. But I found the whiteboard Didn't work as well for me as Post-it notes. However, whiteboards are better for the environment, I guess.
I guess.
You know, you get like recycled Post-its these days, huh? I think you have them because the color is different.
What did they do? Send it to somebody, and then wipe off all the Sharpie and like.
No, I mean, it's like
you know,
it's made
on the back.
from like
This
them all
does say
together.
Post-it notes are recyclable.
it's made from reused paper, and they've
Yeah.
got like, you know how like reused paper always has this like slightly grayish tone to it, and they've
Yeah.
got like all the different Post-it colors, but it's got
I've-
a slightly grayish tone.
Yeah.
That's because they can't get the poo out.
Well, I've also got these notebooks called Rocketbook, and it's almost like paper, and you've got a pen, and you can handwrite everything, and then you take your phone and it uploads it to your Google Drive or your email, depending on where you've checked it off. That's a really nice way of having something tactile that I can save electronically. However, I do that, and then I don't really look at the notes because they're not on paper. I don't read my own electronic notes very well, but I do write my handwritten notes rather well. It's you know, me and my coping mechanisms. I'm enabling myself.
Is it story time yet? Is it story time?
Yes, it's definitely story time. And after that, I'm going to take us back to deep work and testing, because I just saw the pirate tester say something really intelligent, and I want to.
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
that.
We have to get back
But
to that.
story time first.
So like a couple of years ago, like I am massively into these things, as you can tell. I read the books, I do the things, I love productivity hacks, I like get really excited about them. So I have a notebook that I fill in, and I have this beautiful year planning that cascades into a quarter plan, that cascades into a weekly plan, and then a daily plan, and I do my most important tasks first and stuff like that. And then in 2021, I was just sitting there staring at an empty page. And I just could not, for the life of me, think of anything to put into that plan. I had no idea what I was going to do, what I was going to be doing. The world was up in flames. Things were not going well at work. And I just sat there with the empty page. And I was like, okay, fine, I'll just get through the week. And then the week after, again, no plan, no weekly plan, no ideas, and it stayed empty again. And then the week after that, I didn't even make it. And here's the thing. These tools and all of these things, they are really cool until they trip you up. Because when you don't do them and you have been doing them, you then feel guilty about not doing them. And then you feel guilty about not being as productive as maybe you can be. And it just becomes this whole spiral that just goes down into this very deep black hole that is not fun to be in. And the thing of it is, if it makes you feel worse to do one of these hacks or tools or tricks, for the love of God, don't feel bad about it. Like, if there's one thing I can tell the audience today, is just let that shit go as soon as it's not working, because that could just mean that you need rest, that you need to take some time to recover, that maybe you need to find a different system that's working for you now. But for the love of God, don't let them trip you up and then feel bad about it. Like, that was the worst thing for me. So it was the worst feeling, because I was like, but you've always done this. What's wrong with you that you cannot make these plans anymore? And yeah, that's the downside of these Pomodoros, hacks, tools, tricks, Post-its. Like, obviously it's a sign that something's up, but it's not necessarily a bad thing. It could just be you needed a break from the system. That's fine.
And
That's really important.
Productivity guilt is the new Catholic guilt. Like every major religion is based on a certain sense of guilt, and like right now, the religion that we all adhere to is kind of like capitalism and being productive to the system, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh,
and
wow.
the other side of these things is all of these things are discipline based. Like you mentioned, Veerle, it's about getting back when the bell dings, or like Chris said, it's making sure that those things are visible and in front of me and having them. They are all based on having the discipline to follow the system. And I've always wondered, and that's when it all came rushing back for me. As soon as things became delightful and my heart came back into what I was doing, the plans just popped right back in. It was not a struggle. It was not an effort. As soon as there was heart and delight in the things I were doing, it was fun again. And then the systems were useful again. It's like, discipline is not the way to power through, is basically what I'm saying. I think if you need to get deep work done, maybe what you're missing is delight and not discipline.
That's a really good point. And yeah, I mean, forgiveness is important. Let's go about the Catholic thing. But it's I encountered this when sort of learning a little bit about sort of diets and people dieting and things like that and why they fail. And I guess it's much the same with any processes, is that guilt spiral. And why don't you take it back up? And it's because you can't forgive yourself. And so, yeah, if you fall, don't worry about it. Get up, keep going. It's the whole thing of like, it doesn't matter if you fall 9 times, it's that you get up that 10th time, and so if you try a productivity hack and it doesn't work for you, don't worry about it. Just stop, do another one, or take a break and come back to it, or something like that. But one thing absolutely, as you've just covered, is don't feel guilty that you're not doing the thing that the 5 a.m. Californians think is so awesome. I'm hammering this in here. 5 a.m. Californians is my new jam, I think.
So the thing I would like to recommend, if you want to listen to somebody that really explains this really well, it's Madeline Core from I Did Not Do the Thing Today. Read her book if that's your thing, but she's also on a lot of podcasts. I'd recommend her. Just have a listen, because she's all about letting go of that productivity guilt.
We'll share some sources, I think, after the session. Here, so I said before, I wanted to go back to something that our delightful pirate tester said. So, do you use session-based testing? Does anyone?
I used to, and I loved it. It was I actually ran an entire testing project on a sports betting trading platform in session-based testing, because we got parachuted in at the last moment, as you do in the consultancy, and they had testers who didn't really know what they were doing. They didn't have any test assets, anything like that. And my boss and I, we both went, you know what this needs? Session-based testing. And we just defined areas within the application, defined sessions, and gave high-level areas to think about, and then defined the sessions, and everybody went into it. And I have to say, for me, it was the first time I'd really, really used session-based testing constantly. The odd session here and there, whatever, but this one, running session after session in a single day, amazing stuff. And really, similar to the sort of Pomodoro stuff, is it really helped me focus on that area that I was testing, and that area alone. So again, single stream work, being really productive on that single area. And when it's done, finish up, clean it off, and then you can go on to your next single stream piece of work. It was really, really good.
Yeah, it's the same thing with storming tickets on the Jira board. That's another one I use a lot and still love, where at some point you realize you get stuck on things. You noticed in a couple of dailies, you keep talking about it, and then for just one day, the whole team just storms a ticket. That really moves things along. It's brilliant, that type of focus. Don't know necessarily if it's deep work. I guess it is. Yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. It's just team-based. Yeah.
Yeah, I really like the session testing as well. We've been doing it in my project as well, where we get all the developers focused in one session as well, highlighting a specific area, and it's been really good.
Yep. Yeah, so time-based work in testing works really well for us.
All right. So how about deep work? Do we need it? Because there's a lot to do about it. Do we need it? Is it essential for like doing good work, or could we do without it?
I think it's from person to person if you need it or not. But I know that we mentioned when we prepared a little bit for this session as well about like blocking your calendar for deep work and not being available for your team when it looks like you're always busy. So I think that could be an important aspect as well. So, I mean, it could be good, but blocking the calendar, it's perhaps not always the best way to do it.
I think it's really interesting that, because so one of the things I put in our show notes is that I consider myself to be always interruptible, because of the way I style my leadership. The way I sort of put it to the teams is like, look, I'm here as an unblocker for you. So if you're blocked, you can't, come and become unblocked, and therefore I need to be interruptible. And so I do find, however, I'll definitely hold my hand up and say some days I find like I've got all my tasks, 10 tasks, and they're little grains of sand that I'm moving a little millimeter at a time and not really sort of getting any forward motion on the tasks. But at the same time, I think being interruptible for me is where I can help the team most. So yeah, I think it's a nice to have for me, not necessarily necessary. Although if my bosses watch this, they probably will go, Shey, you need to do some.
Yeah, I think it's good for leaders and managers to be available, but I want to add that like busy work and deep work, there's a real distinction there for me. And it's the lesson I learned with the delight and heart side of things. Like if there's no work in that day that is absolutely exciting me and me pouring my heart into it, if there's none of that in a day, that's a very sad day. And it might be productive, but it's not a good day. Like I do need the deep work. I don't need it necessarily all of the time, but I need to feel like I'm moving towards these bigger, fun things that really have caught my creativity and attention. So yeah, for me, absolutely essential. I think you can call the doctor when I'm not doing any of this type of work. Yeah,
I think you're right. There's a sense of achievement sometimes that you get, and that brings that pleasure. Like I've actually done something. That deep session, there is a bit of sort of endorphins being released because I'm actually like enjoying what I'm doing. I'm feeling productive, and for me, I need there to have been some of that time. Maybe not every day, but there have been times in my life when I might have gone weeks on end back in the old days when I commuted, when I'd be driving home and just feeling drained and I hadn't really achieved anything. But when I'd been able to have days when I'd had those deep sessions and I'd really done it, and then I'd sort of come away feeling positive about it and thinking, great, like I need that every once in a while in order to be able to feel good about my work and feel like I'm making progress. There's a thing I think we're often guilty also of, not tracking the successes that we've had, not necessarily how we got there, but to actually say, I did a good thing. I am pleased with this thing. This is how it made me feel. This is what I did. Because I think sometimes people ask you, oh, what have you done? What are your wins? What are your good things? And you might sit there and go, yeah, I did some things, moved some tickets, answered some people. But
yeah,
that doesn't sound rewarding or enjoyable. And maybe in more of a leadership position, maybe enabling other people to do those things is just as important. But I still need to feel like I've done something. I'm like Thomas the Tank Engine. I need to feel like I'm a really useful engine. I just and I only feel like that if I've actually like had that focus. I've been able to try hard doing something, enjoyed it, and actually achieved it.
And there's no real benefit to getting work done that is maybe essentially busy work, or uninspiring work maybe would be the better word for it, because there's always more. It's not like our job ever ends at the end of the day. Like, what are we trying to move faster for exactly? I mean, a lot of it makes sense to me. I like moving the team further, contributing makes me feel good. There are things I love to work hard for, but there's also a lot of work which just shows up again as soon as the other stuff's done. And it's like the whack-a-mole game where you whack one mole, it's still going to be 4 more popping up in the next couple of hours. I'm not inspired to do any deep work for that kind of activity. There's no point, because there's always more of it anyway.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I mean, in my project, we have actually, at one point, we had a few too many meetings for some people who really don't like it. So what we've done is that we have 2 days a week when we have afternoons that we say no meetings. And that's been really appreciated by the developers. I think the lead people in the project does not adhere to it as much, but we do not invite everyone to meetings then, because that's like sacred time, and it's something that people really appreciate.
Yeah, that's
so I mean,
nice.
not said that people still talk to each other, but at least it's not meeting, it's like work focus.
I think that's a really interesting sort of if we're talking about productivity hacks or and sort of help us to deep work. We started talking about sort of do we set ourselves deep work time in our calendar and things like that. But I think flip it around and having time when you're not expected to be in meetings, I think possibly could lead to more quality feelings within that time. So you're able to offhand just tell everybody to bugger off, no meetings during this time. And therefore you might, because you're feeling more relaxed and not under pressure, do deeper work without realizing.
Yeah.
And so I'd be interested if in people who have those afternoons, and really sort of give it a thought. Do you feel like you're more productive during those times because because you've not got meetings, or you've not got the pressure of having meetings, or anybody putting meetings in there?
Yeah,
Is a thing,
I know it's been appreciated.
I was going to say that sometimes I think not having a meeting versus actually having a collaboration time with people, because actually we talked a lot about focus and productivity and stuff, but actually sometimes I can be really focused and really productive when I'm working with someone in a pairing, or even if it's a bit less structured on those things, where we're sharing a screen, we're talking about things, we're doing those parts as well. Because if I'm just by myself and my lovely music all this time working, it's kind of the same. And I think I have to sort of trick my brain into having a bit of difference. So I know some people go to different locations, or they'll go for a walk or something, but actually interacting with different people in different ways, synchronously and asynchronously, helps me, because I work well with people. I do. I enjoy it because and people are important. They give me a bit of energy, whether it's remotely or in person. And I think we can be really productive together as well as apart. And I think if we can find that way where there are people that we can work well with, get on the same page as, and do productive things together and structure it well, it does really help. And I think meetings get a bad rap, and I've been in some really bad meetings. But if we can do meetings well, they can be sessions or collaboration bits and bobs and stuff. Whiteboarding is great, but don't go on the Urban Dictionary to look it up. But sharing a whiteboard and doing things with people, it's really important. And it can actually help with productivity, because then I've done that thing. I've got that vibe, I've got that energy working with somebody, and I can take that momentum off and do those parts for myself. To sort of feedback, and then there's a level of accountability that comes with that I think is really helpful.
You're touching on a really good point, which I want to emphasize a bit more, and that's the energy that comes off of things and listening to that. And this returns to the heart and delights that I was mentioning earlier. There are things that you do that will add energy to your day. And those can often be collaborative, they can be individual, but listening to it, like the rabbit hole I went down with the productivity research, with the context switching, that was absolutely driven from the utmost, wow, I really want to understand where this data is coming from and how they've been running these tests. And I spent very happily 3 to 4 hours just reading research articles, not of the highest quality, just plowing through them one after the other. But that's because it was feeding that energy loop. It was not diminishing it in any way. And I think learning to develop kind of antennae for where that kind of stuff is for you really adds into finding also time to do that type of deep work, because it's not making you exhausted. It's actually energizing you.
I want to add something about something similar, but about the meetings, because Grace, I think you said something like you could be really productive even if you're working with other people. And I think Stacey Cashmore wrote a blog post about this, which I thought was an eye-opener, where she said there's 2 types of meetings. It was about pair programming, essentially. And she said, like, oh, some people say I don't want to do pair programming because it's just another meeting in my day. And she said, well, there's actually 2 types of meetings. Like, some meetings add work and some meetings take away work. And she said, like, usually pair programming, if done right, it will take away work because you're working on something together. Whereas if you're in like refinement planning meetings and all that, they will just add more work to your backlog. And that's why people hate them. But I thought that was quite interesting. And I recognize that in what you said, Chris.
I find a lot of value in pairing and ensembling and things like that. I couldn't do it all the time because I think physically and mentally I'd be drained. But it's finding that balance and that dynamic and getting the right level of energy for those things. And I think having the ability and the privilege to say no to things is really important as well, because I don't think we all get that. But there are some times when I just can't. And I need to I just need to nope out of it.
That sounded so fundamental, so existential. I just can't.
But it's true, isn't it? True, because sometimes, like, you know, we've gone through waves of highs and lows in our time over this pandemic and beyond, and sometimes, you know, the mental bandwidth we've got is finite, and there's still things that we can do to keep the engine going, but there are some things I just can't do, and I think we need to be honest and open about those things, and to try and get past that without, you know, sort of shutting off completely, because I think I can still be productive when I haven't got the ability to sort of influence and drive things, but it's hard, and you need to be aware of that, because sometimes I can't do the deep focus because I can't engage my brain because there's just too much going on. Like, I tried moving house in a pandemic.
You know what, Chris, I'm super glad you mentioned this, and I'm going to hijack it a little bit, because I think we are venturing into the realm of mental health, which incidentally is our next topic. This is going to be on next month on the 25th of May at 3 p.m. GMT, or 1600 hours CEST. So 4 o'clock in the afternoon for everyone in mainland Europe, and at 3 p.m. for everyone in the UK. And I think we'll be covering not just mental health issues, because that's quite often, I think, where that topic goes. It goes to problems with mental health, but I think we're also going to be covering a little bit about why is it important? Does it differ from physical health? What kind of environment helps you thrive and makes you be healthy mentally? So that's going to be next month's session. So if you enjoyed this one, and even if you didn't, tune in, because it's going to be really good. I think for today, we're almost near the hour mark. So I think that's our time is up. But let's do one more shout out about the giveaway that we've got. Sanne, do you want to do the honors?
Yes. So wrong answers only. How do you find focused time to get your work done in the age of distractions? And we've had one lovely answer already from Jazzy. Go and sit in the middle of a flea market with both my desktop mechanical key writer, joystick, and 56 inches curved monitor.
Well, that's
How
a
long will those
fantastic
last?
effort. If you want to win an absolutely free ticket to Expo QA in Madrid, I forgot to say the dates earlier, but
June
it's,
1st.
the first and 2nd of June in Madrid, Spain. So if you want to go
Veerle
there,
and myself.
yes, absolutely. See us talk, see us waffle some more, but in real life. If you want to win that, then you'll have to do it better than Jazzy, which admittedly is going to be a tough one, but I'm sure there's some creative types out there who can give it their best shot. One more time with feeling. Who are we in order, in alphabetical order, but this time surnames?
Still me. So you can find me at Christovskia on Twitter, LinkedIn. I'm even on Polywork, not that I know what I'm doing on it. I'm there. So my name's too common to do anything else, but Christovskia is the name. Find me there. Apologies for the spelling.
And you can find me at Shey on most social media platforms. LinkedIn is Shey Crompton, and come and chat. I'm really interested to hear what people thought of this, and you can suggest topics, and you can just get involved. Come and find us. Come and talk.
Excellent. And you can find me, just search my name, Hanna on LinkedIn, and I should be quite easy to find. I'm also on Twitter, but not very active. So if you want to get contact with me, it's better to use LinkedIn.
Is anyone on Mastodon yet?
You want to tell us, don't you?
You're still going on about that, are you?
Right. Okay, you can find me, Veerle Verhagen, on LinkedIn. Just search for my name and you'll find me. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm at Witch of the Test, and I'm not yet on Mastodon, but if anybody wants to show me how it works, then I might be soon.
Nice one. All right. So I'm at Simply Sanne, and I'm that on LinkedIn and on Twitter. And for those of you that want to read that, at Simply Sanne, that's where the conference raffle ticket is as well. So go ahead and pop your answers, best puns, best answers, best wrong answers to how to not get deep work done. All right.
All right. You can find the whole troop of us on 9 out of 10 testers. That's 9 and 10 spelled with numbers, not with letters. So 9 out of 10 testers on YouTube, Twitter, and LinkedIn as well. Come find us if you're organizing an event and you want to hear us rant some more about any topic at all. We're also bookable. So see you all next month, hopefully. Thanks everyone in the comments as well for all the great thoughts, and see you next time.
Thanks for joining us. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Freeze frame.